This episode is brought to you by Vital Farms. Isn't it bullshit to have to question where your food comes from? At Vital Farms, you can trace your pasture-raised eggs all the way back to the source, the pasture. On the side of each pasture-raised carton of eggs, you'll find the name of the farm where your eggs were laid. And when you look the farm up on their website, you'll get a peek at all the sunshine, fresh air, and open space the hens enjoy. Learn more and find out where to buy them at vitalfarms.com. Vital Farms, keeping it bullshit free.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. That's the sound of switching your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling. Harness the best converting checkout and same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Stop leaving sales on the table. Discover why millions trust Shopify to build, grow, and run their business. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech23.
This episode is brought to you by Kia's first 3-row all-electric SUV, the Kia EV9, with available all-wheel drive and seating for up to 7 adults, with a 0 to 60 speed that thrills you 1 minute and available reclining lounge seats that unwind you the next. Visit kia.com/EV9 to learn more. Ask your Kia dealer for availability. No system, no matter how advanced, can compensate for all driver error and or driving conditions. Always drive safely.
Welcome to the HCI family of podcasts. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We share our own original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. Join us for practitioner-oriented content around all things leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with the HCI family of podcasts. Welcome to the podcast. In this podcast episode, I talked with Henning Roedel and Tristen Magallanes about how robots are being integrated into the workforce. Tristen Magallanes and Henning Roedel, welcome to the conversation today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
It is a pleasure to be with you. Where are you both joining me from today?
So I am located in Northern California in the East Bay area.
And I'm also Northern California in San Jose.
Wonderful. And I am coming from south of Salt Lake City in Utah. Great to be with you both. And today we're going to be talking about how robots are being integrated into the workforce. A super fun conversation. Of course, there's lots of conversation around AI, deep machine learning, and how those sorts of automations are transforming the way we work. I think it's important to also remember there's lots of different forms of automation, and robotics and advanced robotics is one of those forms that we need to continue to pay attention to. And in fact, there's probably some overlap between robotics and AI and some of those sorts of things, which we'll explore together today. As we get started, I wanted to share Henning and Tristen's bios with everybody. Dr. Henning Roedel is the robotics lead at DPR Construction, helping to coordinate new technology experimentation and fostering an ever-forward culture. Tristen Magallanes is a passionate, creative, and organized construction industry professional with experience in research, ethnographic studies, and organizational culture. Now, I could say way more about both of you and your backgrounds, but I'll pause there. Anything else you would like to highlight from your own background and experience before we dive on into the broader conversation?
I think the only thing I would add is that we're both very focused in our careers right now on the craft workforce in the industry, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But that's, I think both of our backgrounds lead us into that focus area.
Tristen, anything you want to add?
No, I agree with Henning. We're both very craft focused, and my father's a carpenter, so I've grown up with it my whole life, and it informs our work. So I'm excited to talk about it more.
Why don't we start with just a high level kind of introduction to this idea of robotics and where things are at today, maybe what the arc is over the last several decades and where we're at today in integration into the workforce. I think most people, have a general sense of, you go to factories, there are robots. There are different settings where people might have a mental image of robotics, or there's been some sort of media portrayal. Maybe they saw a movie, that portrays things in a certain way, usually some sort of a post-apocalyptic kind of a way, right? Yeah. Give us a little bit of the arc of history around robotics in the workforce.
Sure, I'll start with that. And we're both construction industry professionals, so we're sort of latecomers to the whole robotics game. This is a new territory for us. But robotics automation has been happening since the 1970s and 80s and 90s. And it's really taken off in manufacturing settings. And what differentiates construction from the manufacturing industry is that in manufacturing, the work sort of stays in one location, right? The work zone. And in construction, we go to the work, right? And that's a major distinction. And I think one of the main reasons why our industry is late to the game, because the technology wasn't available to bring robots and to give them the context of what they need to do next and where they need to do their work. And so fast forward to the last decade or so, where you have the advent of self-driving cars, battery technologies coming to the fray, and then a workforce shortage that has really sort of opened up the potential for this and the need for something like robotics to come into play.
So in the construction industry, what are some examples of what we see in terms of robotics at play? I was just watching a video the other day, just kind of scrolling through my phone, and I was watching this cool video of like a 3D printer robot, doing a house, which I thought was so cool, right? It's cheaper, faster, more durable, like all these positives of using that kind of an approach, at least as portrayed in this video. So in my mind, that's one example, but like, what are some of the common examples of how robotics are being integrated in the construction industry?
Yeah, there's a lot of different types of applications. There's, single task type applications, and then there's robots that they're trying to apply to multitasks. Some of the common ones that I've seen are layout and helping with layout applications like Dusty robot. Then there's a couple others that are more safety related to overhead lifting, like the Hilti Jybot and Vita Inclinata. And Henning can speak to more details on those. But there's been a lot of those types of applications lately.
Yeah. So Tristen, is one of the sort of spearheading researchers in this space, and she's probably too humble to say it, but she's done a lot of work with four-legged robots as well, working on job sites. And yeah, we're exploring sort of safety and quality aspects, and they're really, like, every robot we've come across has made some sort of improvement there. And we're exploring a lot from concrete 3D printing, which in my mind is like a novel form of formwork that we can use in concrete construction. There's rebar tying robots. There are placement robots. There are drilling both overhead and at the edge of slabs. It's really there's a lot of white space in our industry, and we're seeing sort of target approaches. We're also seeing a lot of robotics geared towards like massive solar installations or grid scale solar installations. Those are very remote job sites and a lot of repetitive work, which is ideal for robotic solutions.
Yeah, and this idea of the remote locations is interesting. That, like you said, in the traditional factory setting, we've been seeing robots, especially since the early 70s. Repeat motion. I forget what you just termed it, but basically the same task over and over and over again. Single kind of task robots. We've seen those for a long time, but they're big, expensive pieces of equipment. It's hard to move around and calibrate and all those sorts of things. And now we're talking about a construction industry where you're going on site, on location. Every place is different. You have to transport. Like, all of that adds layers of complexity to how you're going to be utilizing this equipment. Thank you for some of those examples as well, because I think that's super helpful. As we have labor shortages, this is one of the compelling reasons to utilize more and more robotics and any form of automation, frankly, how has the construction industry, the labor market in the construction industry been affected in recent years due to things like the pandemic and other ebbs and flows in the economy?
So I'll take a stab at it. So, we're in a major generational shift, and that is impacting our workforce. I think that's probably one of the biggest things. And so we're having a supply and demand challenge right now where we have a massive amount of demand for new housing, for new facilities, and the like. And the folks who have the experience that can build these buildings, they're retiring, or they're aging out, or they're injuring themselves out of the industry. And every time we see an economic downturn or a major global event like the pandemic, we just see people leaving the industry and not returning, right? And we're not getting the new generations, the millennials, the Gen Zs, approaching the construction industry as we used to. Right. And there's myriad reasons for that. And I'm sure we could have an entire hour-long podcast dedicated to that. But the fact of the matter is we're just not getting enough people to work in our industry. And so the industry itself is taking a bunch of approaches to try and address this, from robotics and automation to more factory-like construction settings. We can call it prefab in the industry, but it's factory work nonetheless. To diversity and equity inclusion. Our industry has let's say some history about it that we could work on and improve. And I look at folks, and if they're looking at our industry and they see the people and how they're leaving the industry at later stages in their careers, it's not a pretty picture for a lot of folks, right? You're working, it's laborious work. It's long hours. It's not an enclosed environment. So you're subjected to high heats and cold temperatures in the summer and winter months. And it's just very hazardous work. And so, I would attribute a lot of that to problems we're facing in our industry.
Yeah, I'll add on to that I see robotics as an opportunity to bring in different workforce. I get on a little bit of a soapbox about this, but women have been largely underrepresented, as have been differently able-bodied folks. And I see that robotics can be the augmentation needed to help provide them the tools to come into this space in a more comfortable, equitable way. And I see that there's a huge potential for that in our future to attract that workforce. Also, generational differences. Robots can be kind of fun. It's, I operated the Spot robot from Boston Dynamics myself, and it's like playing a game. So if I turned my construction project into a game and I've gamified it, it then creates and attracts a different type of workforce that might not have previously been considered coming to this space. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there that we have yet to really understand fully. But I think it's a big road ahead of us and a big opportunity there.
So back in my late teens, early 20s, I worked construction. It was kind of a means to an end for me. I was earning money for college, and, it was like summer work. But yeah, hot, dirty, dangerous, physically intensive, and I was quite happy when I was done. I did it for a while, and I worked in concrete and foundations, and that's hard work. And it's cool now to see how there are such advances to make that work safer, to make it easier, to make it more attractive and just more efficient, all of those things. And so, certainly, I'm happy with my career and where I ended up going, but certainly had some of those things been in place, it would have at least given me some pause back then to think, oh, is this perhaps a career path that I had previously considered? Maybe there's opportunities here in ways that I hadn't previously thought about. And so I think everything you're describing makes sense to me for younger workers, people who might get engaged in the industry in ways that, previous generations never had the chance to, just because of the nature of the work has changed. I think it's also important to reflect on, the scary word automation. So many people get really nervous about, automation, whether it's AI or robots or whatever, and they think, oh, the technology is going to steal my jobs. Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, there can be some displacement of tasks, and there are going to be certain things that automation can do, especially those repetitive things. And so we're not going to need people to do all those repetitive things anymore. But generally speaking, we have a shortage. It's not like we have a surplus of people. Like, we already have a shortage. So it's not like robots are going to be taking people's jobs. It's like it's filling in the gaps of where we don't have enough workers. And they're doing a lot of the work that nobody else would want to do, frankly. Dangerous work, dirty, grimy work, repetitive, mind-numbingly dull work, all of those sorts of things. And so, if we can have machines do that kind of work so that it frees us up to do other types of things that are more innately human and creative and leveraging our skills and developing new skills, then that just seems like a win-win for everybody. And it's not something we need to get so worried about, so scared about.
Yeah.
Oh man, I want to jump on that so bad. Sorry, Tristen. Yeah, I love it.
You can jump on it. It's cool. I know you both get excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it on the head, right, John? Like, this is such an opportunity for us as an industry, and we look at these new automations as tools, right? Like, you think of the steam shovel. That's a famous story from the beginning of the industrial age. And we're at this new level of automation, right, where the tools can do a little bit more, right? We went from screwdrivers to rotary drills to battery operated drills. Well, now there's an arm and that can help you with measuring and getting the holes in the right location, right? So I see the progression there. And yeah, we still need our people to be craftsmen, right, to solve the problems that ultimately come up in construction problems every single day. And I'd rather have our people and our folks, our labor force, working on that and using their minds rather than the dull, dirty, dangerous work that you mentioned. All right. I love it.
Yeah, I also consider crafts folks, they have an incredible amount of skill, and I don't envision robots ever replacing that. There's certain, I think of like the woodworker and their fine detail, and yeah, there might be some application of a robot that can do that, but they're always going to need the human input involved in order to inform that process. I don't envision that ever going away fully. And I look at robots as in automation, it's just another tool. It's a different tool. We went from a rock to a hammer to a drill. Like, things over time have changed, and with it, little bits of automation have come with it. And this is just another evolution of that. However, I understand the fear, right? The value is placed on, I can provide this skill and this ability, so this is my value in the workplace. And you're saying a robot's going to do that. So if folks can perhaps think differently about it, in that now my job is just going to change a little bit. My value is going to be helping these robots learn this task and operating them to perform, 5 things at once, whereas I could only do one previously as a person. That mind shift will take a while, but I think it's possible.
Yeah, I think so too. It's always happened. Like, we're in industry 4.0, people say, or even 5.0 now. We're in the knowledge economy. But you go back to the early stages of the Industrial Revolution, or even to prehistoric man, and the development over time. Like, it's always happened. Like, we've always developed new tools. We've always displaced certain things or done things more effectively and efficiently. And we've always adapted. And what always happens is that as new tools come online and we learn how to utilize them, that it ends up opening up entire new pathways for jobs, careers, things that had never even been considered before. And so I fully anticipate that will be the case. Like, we'll just continue to see new opportunities arise that, 10 years ago, nobody had ever even conceived of. And that's exciting to me, to think about that. Now, we also need to think about proper application of, robotics. And I was wondering if you have any thoughts around, the selective application of robots in the workforce. You can get to, as I referred to jokingly earlier, like this post-apocalyptic kind of world scenario in the portrayed in the media. I just saw the other day, I saw that new movie, The Creator, which has these robot AI driven robots, and it's kind of an interesting movie. It's a common theme though that you see in a lot of these types of movies, where humans basically aren't thoughtful about the application of these technologies, and it ends up causing problems. What are some of those guideposts that you have in mind as you're thinking of in this space around the selective application of robotics and construction in particular, but really generally too?
First and foremost, and especially when I talk to any sort of startup or tool manufacturer, is we want to see improvements to safety and quality in our projects, right? And that's the minimum bar there. And it can be in many different ways. We are a very hazardous industry. And like I said, there's a lot of white space there. So I'm reminded of a quote from a professor from Stanford, Dr. Martin Fisher. He runs a construction robotics course. They do decision analysis on new robotics and which one should be applied. So very applicable to this question. And of the 30 or so case studies they've done over the years, there hasn't been a single robot that didn't improve safety or quality, right? Every single one of them improved it. That's exciting for us. It doesn't give us a lot of selection criteria in that regard. So other ways in which we look at it is we look at how it impacts our direct workforce. DPR construction, we're a self-performing general contractor. So not only do we manage the work, but we also perform it, right? Our colleagues are there swinging the hammers, running the screw guns, that kind of thing. Yeah. So we're looking for tools that help them, and we can have that direct interaction of, what ails you, what are the safety concerns, and target machines and tools that do that. So we don't necessarily apply every single one of those robots that Stanford has studied to our business.
I know at the time we're going to be wrapping things up here in the next few minutes, but as we get closer to finishing the conversation today, are there any other areas that you think are really worth exploring briefly, and anything that you think is really important to the conversation? Tristen?
Yeah, I think the other piece of this puzzle is training the workforce, and how do we approach that? How do we leverage the union partners in union areas to do that as well? That's a big topic of conversation right now. And I don't by any means it's not solved, but I think having that discussion when you're developing an application early on of what that might look like in the future is really important. And it's probably going to look differently depending on the application. But it's really, it's another piece of the puzzle that we need to also solve along the way.
Yeah, so I'll bring up sort of two parts, or two different topics. So I'm really trying not to say construction in outer space, and that's what's I'm holding it back, Jonathan. John. No, so the other one, oh, here it is. The movies that you're referencing and the advent of humanoid robotics. I saw the video that Tesla released at the beginning of the year, and they had 5, of those humanoids walking towards the camera. And it actually gave me a chill to my bone. And it was almost like the Hollywood description of robotics playing out in real life. But the other thing I saw in that video was some people actually going in and directing the robots and training them with physically doing the work themselves. And I recognized the value of having a humanoid robot in that regard, which is it's intuitive for us to train these robots because we can just do the motions or do the activities that we would do, right? Walking robots and the level of sophistication and algorithms that you need to make this successful, you wouldn't want to start with a humanoid. But from a training perspective and a learning perspective, I think we'll have some really intuitive interfaces that are worth exploring, right? And that's going to be a really interesting thing playing out here in the future. And then the second thing I wanted to mention is just who we are as DPR, as a construction company. We're sort of building. We're the 6th largest general contractor in the U.S., and we do about $8 to $9 billion of work a year. And our role in society is to help build the innovation economy, right? Provide the infrastructure for the innovation economy. And so we're helping build the data centers that are going to run the AI algorithms that support the robotics that will help our job sites. And it's really interesting to see that play out. We're also working in the life sciences field and advanced manufacturing field. And so this is something that is near and dear to our core business. And it's something I think we're going to continue to see investments in. And we hope that it will play out and help solve both the productivity issues that we have in construction, as well as, address the labor shortage, and how do we as an industry provide the housing and roads and buildings for us to live and work in.
Yeah. Well said. Well, Henning, Tristen, this has just been a really great conversation. I know at the time and I need to let you go, but before we wrap things up for today, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work and your team, and then give us the final word on the topic for today.
So you can reach me on LinkedIn if you just do a quick search for my name. And you can also learn more about some of our work through going to our website at dpr.com. We have a blog on there and you can learn more about some of our work. And my final thought is we do want to build on the moon. So let's build here first to get there.
Yeah,
absolutely. And Henning Roedel, I think I'm the only Henning Roedel in the world. So you just have to Google that name and you'll find me. And yeah, reiterating what Tristen said, I'm sure we could have another podcast on what it takes to build on the moon and what technologies are necessary for it. But robotics will be one of them.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you both. It's been a real pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Henning and Tristen can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and please join us again soon.